So, back for another Funconventional, and this time we're going to be looking at Mamoswine. Very surprised that Mr. Rhyme didn't win the poll, considering I said that I would do Mr. Mime as well as Mr. Rhyme if it were to win. But Mamoswine was the victor here, so I'm going to be going with this instead. And Mamoswine, it did get a buff in this generation, with Oblivious now making itself immune to Intimidate. That is a very, very big buff for Mamoswine. But it's just very awkward for it, basically because of its speed. Because its speed ties with Togekiss, and it underspeeds Excadrill, which is really awkward for Mamoswine, because if Excadrill outspeeding, it can get a Max Steel Spike, raise its defense, and then take the ground moves pretty easily, and that is incredibly awkward for it. Togekiss speed ties is not fun at all. So, no, to be fair, not every Togekiss is max speed. So it's technically in your favour to move first with Mamoswine because they have to be max speed and win the speed tie. But even still, Icicle Crash does very good damage to Togekiss, but if they're defensive enough, they can live. If they Dynamax, they definitely live, and then it becomes really awkward. So Mamoswine, it got buffed, but it's in this really, really awkward position, really because of its speed. If it outsped Excadrill, I'm pretty sure it would be used more than Excadrill, but it does not, and here we are. So it is in this incredibly awkward position, but it does have some niches. The main one that I think it has is Ice Shard. And that is Ice Shard your own Dragapult. Because Dragapult, with Weakness Policy, has really been picking up. And there are a few options of activating your own Weakness Policy on Dragapult. The main one is the Shadow Sneaks on the Mimikyus. Seen Shadow Sneak on Aegislash as well with that triple Ghost team. And you've got the options of things like Sucker Punching yourself or Quick Attacking yourself with a Sylveon. But not too many viable things get Ice Shard as well. But Weavile is very reasonable as well. But yeah, Mamoswine does have Ice Shard, so it is in that niche of being able to activate the Dragapult's Weakness Policy, and it does pair well with the Dragapult as well. If you can win the speed ties, you can beat the Togekiss that can help beat the Dragapult, so that is pretty useful. And it does synergize very well with the Max Phantasms that will come out from the Dragapults as well, because it is going to be very, very physically offensive with base 130 attack, so it is going to be doing a lot of damage when they've got -1 defenses. And even though the speed tier is awkward, after a max airstream you do outspeed other Dragapults, so it is still very usable even if it is incredibly awkward. And speaking of awkward, Icicle Crash is awkward. You can definitely choose Icicle Spear over Icicle Crash if you want to guarantee the accuracy. But it doesn't have the option like Weavile does, where it has Icicle Crash or Ice Punch, or Diamanitan, or Galarian Diamanitan also has that option. It doesn't have Ice Punch, so you have to really commit to Icicle Crash, and it's got that 90% accuracy, so it is incredibly awkward. But flinching is very nice. You can definitely get a lot of flinches with the Icicle Crash, so that's still going to do a lot of damage. And you've got the potential of Earthquake and High Horsepower as well. You don't need both, but I think my preference would be both, because Ice and Ground in itself is very good coverage. And there's not too much extra you would hit with the coverage moves that I've got there, but they're still entirely usable. Like Superpower would be able to hit things like Ferrothorn much harder than Earthquake or High Horsepower would. Rock Slide if you need to like Airstream and Rock Slide a Charizard. And yeah, Icicle Spear was for that accuracy, if you really, really wanted that. And Iron Head was if you Dynamax, then you can get the Steel Spike defense boost as well as the Max Quake special defense boosts as well. But a pretty basic Mamoswine otherwise, because with Life Orb, you want to be hitting as hard as possible. You don't need to be investing too much in your EVs because you're going to be losing so much HP from that Life Orb. But if you want to hit even harder, you can go with the Choice Band on the Mamoswine, and then because you're not losing HP, you can actually have a bit of bulk into this Mamoswine, so that tiny bit of bulk does let it survive the Life Orb Dragapult Max Phantasm, which you definitely want to be doing if you want your Ice type to be able to counter a Dragapult, so being able to live that is very nice. Then Icicle Crash is going to do a huge amount of damage back. I don't think it KOs Dragapult even in Dynamax, but it gets pretty close. You have to be pretty much a Darmanitan to be able to do that, but it's still going to do a lot of damage with that Choice Band. And Ice Shard isn't really just for activating your own Weakness Policy on Dragapult anymore. I don't think I would go for Choice Band if I was with the Weakness Policy Dragapult, because Ice Sharding yourself is nice to get the Weakness Policy. You're going to be doing very reasonable damage with the Choice Band, but then you are locked into Ice Shard. So that would become a bit more awkward. So I think this wouldn't be paired as well with the Weakness Policy Dragapult. Maybe with like a Life Orb Dragapult that's just going for Airstreams instead. So you're not intending to Ice Shard yourself, but then Ice Shard is still a very nice option as well. But going to be having a bit more of a bulky Mamoswine as well. So got the same defensive spreads as well, and with that attack investment you're able to KO a Duraludon with a Max Quake, and then it's just dump special defense for extra Assault Vest bulk. Now with the Assault Vest, you can go a bit more defensive with your moves as well, and so I put Icy Wind onto this Assault Vest Mamoswine. Icy Wind is definitely a move that's been forgotten. Like I think I was saying in the Obstagoon Funconventional as well, Icy Wind has been forgotten. You get the instant speed drop. Mamoswine isn't the fastest thing ever, but the -1 speeds is very significant. So I'm not sure why Icy Wind isn't used as much as it probably should be. Because we're seeing a lot of Airstreams pop up at the moment, and Icy Wind does exactly the same thing. So, yeah, the thing that Icy Wind fits pretty well on this Mamoswine. You still have the coverage of Icicle Crash and High Horsepower, and this one would still be able to Ice Shard your own Dragapult, even better than Life Orb would, because you'd be doing even less damage as well. But you can do a couple more fun things on the Assault Vest Mamoswine. I think you can get away with the Fissure and Stomping Tantrum combination. Stomping Tantrum is weaker than High Horsepower, but if you really, really, really want Fissure for some reason, then you definitely want Stomping Tantrum instead of High Horsepower if you do have Fissure, because you can go for that Fissure combination. If you hit, wonderful, you get a KO. If you miss, now you have 150 base power ground move, so you don't even need to, it's stronger than a Max Quake as well. So that combination is entirely viable, and did see it a little bit back in 2019 as well. Saw a few Fissure and Stomping Tantrum Pokemon, but still usable. Still probably wouldn't recommend it though, but yeah. Going to be moving on to a bit more niche sets with the Mamoswine. I think this one is like a dedicated Colossal counter, because I think objectively now that Intimidate doesn't affect Oblivious, I think Oblivious is better than Thick Fat. There's not too many fire types in the format, and one of the main ones is Incineroar, which you want to not be intimidated. So it's kind of an awkward balance. There is Arcanine that outspeeds you, so maybe you need Thick Fat to be able to do that, but then they can just Will-O-Wisp you as well as if you're Thick Fat, so it is kind of an awkward trade-off. But I think if you are dedicating to be a Colossal counter with your Mamoswine, you want Thick Fat. Because it does have one of the nice niches over Excadrill, where it is still super effective. The fire move is still super effective, but it's not actually super effective, if that makes sense, thanks to the thick fat. So you will be able to survive even a +2 max flare and be able to KO it back with a Max Quake. The Surf does activate your Weakness Policy as well, so that is another option for the Mamoswine. So it's still got the options of things like surfing yourself as well, aquajetting yourself, Mac punching yourself, so there are a few partners that can pair nicely with the Mamoswine as well to be able to self-activate the Weakness Policy, but this is mainly intentionally a Colossal counter, so that you can go for the turn 1 Dynamax unexpectedly. Well, would it be unexpected to live? Like, people should expect Oblivious over Thick Fat, I think, but then you are able to live whatever the Colossal throws out at you, even after the Surf Chip, and KO it back with a Max Quake, which could be a nice niche if your team really, really hates Colossal. And then the final one is just going to be a bit more niche. Apparently, Mamoswine gets both screens, and Lapras is terrible. Don't use Lapras. So use something else to set your screens and Dynamax something else that's much better than Lapras. And this is a double stream Pokemon, so you could very easily run Light Screen and Reflect on this Mamoswine as well. You could get it to be even more supportive. If you want like true support as well, you can have Icy Wind over Icicle Crash or High Horsepower, but I probably wouldn't recommend that. I think the screens would be enough support for this Mamoswine. But yeah, Mamoswine in a very awkward position, but still definitely has its niches. I think these would probably be the best partners. Dragapult absolutely is the best partner for Mamoswine, because Ice Sharding yourself to activate the Weakness Policy is a very, very significant strategy, and Mamoswine can do it just as well as any Mimikyu can. Maybe even better, because it's stronger than Mimikyu, so it can make use of the Max Phantasm drops more than Mimikyu can. So definitely has a niche there. Rotom would definitely be a good partner for Mamoswine if you want to be Earthquaking next to yourself because of the Levitate, and it will be able to take care of most of the Pokemon that do threaten the Mamoswine quite heavily as well. And Conkeldurr would be there, a user to Mac Punch yourself if you've got that Weakness Policy on the Mamoswine. Primarina as well can Aquajet yourself. And then there's the Corviknight as well. If you pair the Corviknight up with any ground Pokemon, you can go for the Earthquake next to the Corviknight, but then you can also go for Max Quake and Iron Defense / Bulk Up, with the Corviknight. So there's some really good synergy basically between any ground type and Corviknight, but Mamoswine is a ground type, so why not go with the Mamoswine here? Because ground also takes care of the fire and electric Pokemon that are super effective against Corviknight, so it would definitely work there. But that's going to be it for the Mamoswine Funconventional. So please put in the comments Pokemon you want to see on future Funconventionals. They will be considered in the next poll after this one. But I am going to be putting in the comments the next 3 Pokemon to be considered for the next Funconventional. I'm going to bring back Mr. Rhyme, because I'm going to bring back the second place of the poll for the next week. Unless it's 2 times in a row second, then I'll drop it. But yeah, I'll bring back Mr. Rhyme, which includes Mr. Mime as well in the Funconventional. Got Rapidash as well, so that's going to be both Rapidashes. If Rapidash wins, it will be Cantonian and Galarian Rapidash as well. And Center Scorch is going to be the other Pokemon for Funconventional. So please put in the comments Pokemon you want to be considered for the next poll, and please vote on the 3 comments that I'm going to put in the comment section for the Pokemon to be featured on the next Funconventional. Thanks for watching.